Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our show today called My Spiritual GPS. And this is your host, Vivian S. de Guzman, known as a human MRI and the #1 money magnet activator. So, if you're new to this show, we recognize where you are in your life at present time, and we know that we are all looking for that soul purpose when we can finally find and express who we truly are and just be of service to this world. But in the meantime, sometimes we have some baggages in the middle, right? So where we are and where we want to be is sometimes completely different than what we see right now. And some of those difficulties and challenges and obstacles that we face, we call it sometimes clutter, resistance, or it sometimes is in a form of pain. And today I'm going to give you an educational show wherein you can actually learn how to tap into your own brain, into your own head, so that you can direct your life where you want it to go and have access to endless possibilities that the universe has in store for each one of you. So today it's just me, your servant, to help you really understand how we can use the power of our head, how we can use the power of our brain in order for us to understand where we are, how we can help our body move into a state of flow, so to speak, right? And not always in resistance. So let's recognize the symptoms of resistance. So I mentioned initially, pain is one of them. Pain is a way for you to either stop with what you're doing, right? It's a signal that something's not quite right and you need to pay attention to it. That's why your body has to give you this sensation called pain. So for some of you, you feel numbness. Perhaps you have been very unconscious in what you're doing in your life. And maybe you just don't have enough tools to handle it. That's part of the reason why you get numb or you try not to feel anything. But obviously feelings are meant to be felt and it needs to be moved through our body. Some of you feel tingly, right? Pins and needles sensation. One way or the other, your body will express itself unconsciously when something is not quite in alignment with that soul purpose. So I just want to give you this one thing in my mind that I really know that my soul is in charge of what happens, because our soul always would like to be growing, expanding, learning, right? It wants to grow, right? The soul is the part of us that we have traveled sometimes in different lifetimes, and we've learned so many lessons along the way. Now, if we remember how we solved it, if we solved it correctly, normally that doesn't give us any more pain or some negative sensations or reactions in our body because we already learned the lesson. But our soul is always in charge. And the soul tells our heart what to feel. And then the heart tells our mind what to think. And then the mind tells the body what to do. So I wanted to just share with you that we just came back. My group and I, we came back from Sedona yesterday. We had a 3-day Sedona Vortex Healing Retreat. And definitely I can share with you that during those 3 days of transformation, I asked them all to be silent and to just look within, right? Just feel what it's like to feel all the emotions, to feel everything that their head is telling them. And it's fascinating because majority of them started crying out of the blue. Some of them are full of joy. Some of them get a lot of ahas. And we forget to be quiet. We forget that God is found in silence. We forget that everything you are is already perfect as a whole. Yet you think sometimes something's wrong with you, or sometimes it's not, your life is not quite where you want it to be. That's why your body is telling you a lot of things. Sometimes there's like numbness on one side, or you just don't feel even, right? So obviously the right side of our body is our masculine side and the left side is our feminine side. And when there's a dis-ease or a dysfunction in that relationship, we see it as a mirror in our lives, right? We can have dysfunctional relationships and we can have things just go array, right? So the soul is the boss, tells the heart what to feel, the heart tells the mind what to think, and the mind tells the body what to do. So today we're going to look at your brain, right, your head, and we're going to see what parts it is. So I'm going to give you a reference first. So you know that my background is a physical therapist. And then, of course, I started adding energy healing and energy clearing or decluttering in my practice. So your brain has three main parts, okay? So everybody touch it with me so then you are aware, like, what is this brain thing, okay? And I'm going to show you a picture as well. I think this would help you acknowledge where you are. So the brain has a cerebrum, okay? So touch the top of your head. So the right and the left, that's your cerebrum. And then you have the cerebellum. It's like underneath in the back of the head. And then you have the brain stem, okay? So it kind of looks like this, right? You see the different colored areas at the top, right? That's your cerebrum. And the cerebellum is, you see the blue at the bottom right here. And the brain stem is like underneath that, like connecting underneath the blue all the way connecting to your spinal cord. So by the way, your brain and your spinal cord, that is like the human computer of your body. Obviously, all the functions emanate from this center, right? The midline. So if you understand the brain, you would also know, you would probably be curious of what are the functions of the brain, right? So if you look at your frontal lobe, so everybody touch the front of your forehead, okay? Your frontal lobe is responsible for your intelligence, your reasoning, your behavior, your memory, and your personality, right? And even your movement. So if you think of a person with dementia or Alzheimer's, this is the part of their brain that gets affected. That's why they behave differently and they forget, like, what did I eat for breakfast? Or, you know, who was I with yesterday? So that's the frontal lobe, okay? So now touch the top of your head and you're going to see the parietal lobe. So this is about your intelligence, your reasoning, telling right from left, your language, your sensation, and your reading. Now, if you think of those pain points, and then sometimes you're getting some weakness in your body, or you have some weird sensation, right? The numbness, the tingling, the prickly sensation, that's your parietal lobe, okay? That's the top of your head. And obviously, when some of your spiritual people out there, when you talk about downloads, everything comes from the heavens, right? And it in universe and goes all the way to the top of your head. So if you have some changes in your physical body, like motor or sensory, that's usually either an overload of that, and that needs to be cleared, or there's just something happening there or changes happening that need to be addressed. All right, now we also have the temporal lobe. So everybody touch the sides of their ear, above their ear. That's the temporal lobe. And the temporal lobe is about your speech, your behavior, right? Your hearing is also in that whole section. And by the way, any forms of addiction, you know, addiction to alcohol, smoking, even sugar, any kind of addiction, maybe you're a workaholic, that's a form of addiction. It's usually on the medial temporal lobe, like very inside of that temporal lobe. And of course, your occipital lobe is the back of your head, right? Touch the back of your head. That's your vision, the things that you see, right? Things that you see perhaps for your future, how you perceive things in life. That's the occipital lobe. Now, if you go underneath that, that's the cerebellum. And that's about balance, coordination, and fine muscle control, like your, you know, toes, your digits, your fingertips. That's the cerebellum. So for those of you who started having some issues with their balance, right? Like some people have vertigo, and some people can't do right from left. It's almost like they can't move their arms together. Like when you go up the ladder, go down the ladder, you're having difficulty with that. A lot of times that's a cerebellum issue. And then, of course, the brainstem is the one that controls a lot of our breathing, our blood pressure. So that's what that looks like physically. So now, what I wanted to share with you is normally when I teach a cranial class, so this class is coming up pretty soon in October 17 to 18. That's a weekend. We actually start releasing the tension in your brain, right? So we know that in the brain you have the top, like the head first, like the skull, right? The bone itself. And then you're saying, well, does the bone really move? Yes, it does. When we teach you some forms of manual therapy or hands-on healing techniques in the head, you'll be surprised that because the head is like a pressure center, you're going to feel relief. You know how when you're thinking a lot, it almost feels like your head is about to explode? That's what we teach when we are really doing this cranial class. It's like, how do you release pressure? Because it already is a pressure center, right? So when you're overthinking, you know, we get headaches, right? We overanalyze, we overstress, we overworry. And we know that when you have those things happening to you, it just doesn't feel good. You can't come out. You can't even have a good conversation because you don't want to listen to somebody else because you're thinking about, well, how can I relieve this pain or this headache or whatever this is that I'm feeling? So you're not quite your best self when your head is not quite working. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of why is it that my head is not working, right? How can I release pressure in my head when I'm having it? So obviously there's different reasons why we have head pressure or we have headaches or we have pain. But the ones I obviously shared with you, the overstressing. So write that down. Am I overstressing? Am I overanalyzing? Am I overthinking? Or am I overworrying? If you're doing any of those, and if you do it multiple times in a day, and sometimes it becomes a habit that you don't even know you're doing it, right? It's just running its own tape in your head. So I would like to share with you one technique to be able to calm that monkey mind, right? And to be able to just feel relief when you're having this pain. So one technique that you could do, okay, let me just release this different parts here that I'm sharing with you, is to really hold the area where you're having pain. So for example, if your headache is in your forehead right here, so you can hold your head, right? So like wherever you're having pain. So if it's in the top of your head, that's where you hold it. So if your headache, let's say, is forehead, like frontal, you're going to hold that area. And it's up to you whether you put a little pressure, like you're almost like squeezing it, or you're just laying your hand on it. Or even if you're a little bit off your forehead, maybe up to 8 inches off your forehead, you're still addressing the physical symptom. So you're going to hold this part of your head where you have the pain, and your other hand goes in your low back above your waist, okay? And if you just focus on just breathing up and down your spine, and you're just visualizing blue as if you're cooling your head, because water cools the head, right? So if you think of blue when you breathe in, and then you also breathe out blue throughout your body, and you're feeling this sensation up and down your spine. So rising water from the earth through your feet to the back of your spine, all the way to the top of your head, and you wash away that same energy in front of your head all the way down. So wherever you're feeling the pain, you can hold that spot and then address and then drain it to your low back. Okay, so that's where your kidneys and ureters and bladder actually meet. So you're sharing to your body, you're telling it to, hey, I know you're hurting, I hear you, I get you. And you're through breath and just focusing on calming down your nervous system, brain and spinal cord, you'll be able to move that energy through and just allow it to flow out of you, okay? Again, because you're releasing overthinking, over worrying, over stressing, and over analyzing. When you're just focused on your body, because your body is your vehicle, right? Your soul is in it. So you want to really take care of it, because this is our vessel, right? And this is what moves you through life. Without the physical body, you can't really go anywhere. So you have to be able to move that energy through you with ease and grace. And you'll notice this, it doesn't take 30 minutes. Sometimes it just takes a few minutes. And then suddenly you're like, oh, my headache is gone, right? Because whatever you're doing is not working, and it's asking you to pay attention to your body and release the pain, okay? And by the way, it could be anything, right? It could be you're thinking about your mother. It could be you're thinking about your bad relationship. It could be your business. It could be anything. It doesn't matter what it is. The goal is to feel better right away. So that's one way of really releasing that. And then you'll get clarity in your head, I promise, okay? And you can do this, by the way, depending on you, right? 10, 15 minutes. Sometimes some people, because they address it right away, it goes away immediately, okay? So you decide how long you're going to hold the area of pain and releasing it through your low back. So that's number one tool. Now, you notice I said, how can I tap into this endless possibilities in the universe? So I wanted to introduce a different concept to you so that you understand what's going on, okay? So physically, we know that the brain is composed of gray matter and white matter. So 40% is gray. And the gray matter, right, is made up of about 100 billion neurons. So you can see how your head, your brain has so many connections. So by the way, your brain is there to serve a purpose. You need to really pay attention to what your brain is doing, because yes, it's above your body. Yes, it does influence what your physical body will do, because what you think is what you do. What you think is what you are, right? So this 100 billion neurons, they gather and transmit signals, but the white matter is made of dendrites and axons. So that's the scientific term for those little cells that have legs. If you look at, it looks like a cell, and then it looks like a starfish, if you think about those, okay? So they're connecting the information as you think about them. So if your mindset is, I don't have enough money, your universe, your physical world will always show you that you don't have enough. That also translates to most likely you don't feel good enough yourself, right? So that belief is somehow you bought it from someone. Maybe you've observed it from your parents, and then you thought, oh, that's normal. That's their reality. Therefore, for me to be loved, I'm going to have to just keep that same reality. So that's one way of doing that, okay? All right, so let's release this, and let me go back to the head. Now, why is it that people always analyze, think about things, right? You notice your brain doesn't really stop thinking. I wanted to share with you this. You've seen me in this show with a human design expert. And by the way, I am not a human design expert, and I'm still learning. But then when I saw this, I wanted to share it with you because I know this information will help you tremendously. So in my practice, I use human design a lot to help my clients find their soul purpose and align with it. So we're going to talk about the head center. So you see that triangle, the yellow triangle above right there, right? And the head center itself, if you think of inspiration, anxiety, and mental pressure, that's usually the purposes of the head center, right? And in the head center, there's 3 gates that we'll see based on human design. By the way, human design, if you think about the chakra system, the astrology, the I Ching, all combined, right? That's human design. So we have gate 64, 61, and 63. What does this mean to you, right? So you have a gate of confusion, wherein maybe you get information in your head. By the way, we pick up so much information from the universe. And if you happen to have a design wherein it's colored, okay, that means it's closed or defined. There's the function or aspect of your personality, means it's more fixed or consistent. But if your center is white, okay, so how do you get this information? By the way, you can go to humandesignamerica.com and get like a free chart. And then you could just put your name, your birthday, the time of your birth, and the location of your birth, and it'll show up what is your head center. How does it look like? Okay, so know that there are three gates here: the gate of confusion, the gate of mystery, and the gate of doubt. And this is courtesy of mybodygraph.com. Okay, this particular image right here. So if you are open or defined, that means there's a function or aspect of your personality that is more flexible or malleable. So that means that leaves you more open to the influence or energy of others. So in other words, my head center is actually open, like it's white. Therefore, I pick up a lot of people's thoughts. So the more intuitive you are, the more empathic you are, the more you'll notice that somehow it's almost like reading someone's mind. Now, again, with permission, right? Because you don't want to just read anybody just because you have an open center. But sometimes we do get overwhelmed, right? Because when we're picking up everybody else's thoughts, well, how do you determine which is yours and which is not yours? So that's where the cranial class comes in, because when you have all these thoughts and you're so used to bringing them in and you don't know how to clear your own head, that becomes an issue. Because as soon as you wake up, if your neighbor is talking about you, your mother is talking about you positively or negatively, it's probably good if it's positive. But if it's not very positive, then you get triggered by that, right? Now think of these three gates as gate 64 could be your download of inspiration. So think about all these ideas. So for those of you that have so much inspiration, it may be good in the morning to journal about these thoughts that are coming up. Now, I usually teach my clients how to muscle test to figure out whether it's their thought or somebody else's thought. Now, gate 61 is about knowing, right? Somehow you just know. Yeah, like when I'm walking down and I'm doing my meditation and I would just see the person in front of me as if they need help, I would text that person immediately. So my clients would go, oh, it's kind of freaky that you kind of know when I'm in trouble, but they're very grateful that I know and I can sense that. And then gate 63 is like inspired logic, right? Inspired logic means you have a very powerful imagination, you think critically, and you have logical questions that inspire the world to prove the answer. So the key is to ask the question, not to find the answer, right? So think about being a kid again, being a child, and being able to just be curious about life, because that's the endless possibilities. That's where it comes in. So there's number 2 tool I want to share with you is you have to ask the question, what else is possible, right? Instead of saying, oh, I know the outcome, this is going to be like this. So what happens when you already know everything? You're not open to learning, okay? You're not open to learning when you know it all, right? So think about when you were in kindergarten and you don't know how to count. You didn't know how to read ABC, perhaps. And then you're like, oh, I want to learn. I want to learn more, right? That's the idea of being open to the knowledge of the universe. Okay, so I'm going to give you a specific mudra that would really help you, like, just quiet your mind. And I use this Gyan mudra. So go ahead and put your thumb and index finger together. And your 3 other fingers are stretched out. So take 3 deep breaths, just breathing in blue and blue. And just absorb and digest that information I just shared. Take a deep breath in and then exhale. Keep the tip of your tongue at the roof of your mouth. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Okay, so just be silent and then breathe 3 more times on your own and see or sense what comes up for you in the next few seconds. Go ahead and write that down. So this specific mudra is the mudra of knowledge. It enhances the knowledge. The tip of your thumb correlates to the pituitary and the endocrine glands. So if you think of that little piece of, it looks like a pea inside your head. And then of course you have your thyroid gland, your adrenals, right? Your like ovaries, like all of these parts that connect you as a female or as a male, right? Prostate for the male. So when you press the thumb and index finger, right? They actually, the two glands, basically these glands that I'm talking about, start to work actively. So you know how that belief system that if you're a female at a certain age, your hormones get imbalanced. Honestly, the hormones get imbalanced because we forget self-care. We think we have to get that care from our partner, from our parents, you know, so we start going into the blame and criticizing and judgment mode. Honestly, if you start really paying attention to what your body needs, like ask yourself today, what do I need today? Really, and write that down. So when I was in Sedona, I was guided to actually, I heard the divine download that I will be spending 7 days consecutively by a beach. So I am putting that on my schedule, right? So when you get a divine download, this knowledge, you don't even know, like, where did that come from? Remember, I have an open head center. Therefore, I get these inspirations all the time. The difference, why do you see success in some people and for some people you're still struggling, right? It's because when I get a download, I listen, I ask some more questions to clarify it, right? Is it like now, later? And I was told the next 7 days. So guess what? I am putting that on my schedule. My execution is immediate because the gates that I have, right? I keep it clean. I keep those clean. When we have fear and doubt in like, did I just hear that right? Where did that come from? So, your mind starts to question because your mind says, you cannot change, because if you change, well, at least now you know what you're struggling with. At least you know how to do that, right? Like you're still alive. So I kept you safe. So the brain will always keep you safe. However, in order for you to really honor your soul, its growth process, you do need to step outside that comfort zone and just be okay that, oh, by the way, is it really convenient for me to be at the beach every single day? Well, it didn't say to do it every morning. It just says every day for 7 days. So I will put that on my schedule right after the show. That's what I'm doing, right? So for you guys to really get something from the universe, something from God, something wherein somehow your heart skips a beat, like you're so happy that you're going to do that, please honor that from your head center. Remember, it's not made for decision making. You're just getting information, some download and some inspiration, and your job is to either go follow it or perhaps write about it, because then maybe your schedule doesn't allow you to execute everything, right? And just give yourself that space and time to really like follow what you heard. Because when you're following that soul of yours and you're connected to higher guidance, you'll notice that life comes to you with ease, grace, and flow. Okay. So what I wanted to do is make sure I invite everyone to come to the cranial class. It's called the Gateway of Endless Possibilities, right? And if you go to viviandeguzman.com/academy and scroll down, you're going to see that class coming up called Cranial Class, the Gateway to Endless Possibilities, right? So again, I'm going to summarize what I covered today. So the first thing you're going to have to do is, if you're having pain, acknowledge you're having it. You're going to hold the part of your head where you're getting the pain, and you're going to connect that to your low back, right? 10 to 15 minutes, and you're breathing blue until you feel like there's a release and the pain pretty much goes away, right? So you go from tension to relief, right? To relaxation. Number two is you do have to ask the right questions. You can ask, what are the infinite possibilities, let's say, of getting what you desire, right? So you can state that, whether it's money or a good relationship, and then listen to the download. And you may have to journal that every day and practice feeling and practicing silence. And then number three was the mudra, right? The mudra wherein you just access the infinite knowledge of the universe. By the way, we all have it. It's only the thoughts in our head and whatever we're hearing from others. If it's not yours, it's not yours. So if you need more clarity on how to actually feel good, not just in your head, but in your body, right? Because this will affect your sleep. This will affect your well-being, your feeling, right, about yourself. And what I'm going to do now is allow you to ask questions, perhaps help you with a situation that maybe you've been running around in circles and you still haven't figured out what the situation is. So I'm going to bring up Sarah. Sarah is my assistant here today, and she will give us all these comments and bring up any questions that maybe the audience has.
Let me unmute myself. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, yes.
So today, so Lisa wants to know, she says it's an excellent class, the cranial sacral.
Yeah.
And she wants to know, if you have physical pain in your body, can you go to the area in the brain and hold that area and then flow the energy to that particular area?
Yes, definitely, Lisa. So for example,
she says, for example, your hips and things.
Okay, got it. So yes, in the cranial class, we can hold that area, let's say your hips, right or left side, that's causing the problem, and teach you a mapping tool, like an energy mapping tool, wherein to see whether is that coming from your head and what part of the brain is it coming from. And then when you learn the techniques on how to release, because sometimes we don't know, is it coming from the bone? Is it coming from the different areas of the brain, right? The dura, arachnoid, or pia mater. So for those of you that are, let's say, nurses or doctors, and you already know anatomy and physiology, this is excellent, right? But sometimes it's not even coming from that physical plane. So you're going to learn whether it's physical, emotional, or maybe psychic or spiritual issue that's causing the hip pain. Because sometimes we think, right, it's just the physical problem, but sometimes it's not quite that. So yes, definitely, you will learn how to treat your own self, basically. That's very empowering to know that you have tools to take care of yourself. Yes.
Okay, and then so Venus says, so is it true that you only use 10% of your mind and your brain, and do spiritual people end up using more than that?
Very good question. So obviously there's no specific test to show us whether you're using 10%, 20, 30, right? When you start, spiritual people use intuition a lot, which is actually, if you think of the right side of the brain is your emotional brain, right? And the left side of our brain is our logical brain, and intuition sits right in the middle. So everybody just rub your hands together. This is fun. Thank you, Venus, for such a enlightening question. And I want you guys to close your eyes for a second and just use your fingertips to feel, right? So about 1 centimeters off of your forehead, if you start massaging it, like you have 2 happy faces there, I want you to tell me, like for you, Sarah, which is more tight or dense? Like you feel like there's more resistance to the circling movement. Is it the left side or the right side?
Left.
Okay, so with Sarah, her left side is giving her more resistance or congestion. That means she thinks a lot, right? She uses her analytical side of her brain, And if she keeps on doing this exercise that we're doing now, so we're thinking 1, 2, 3, and we're kind of dumping that energy into an imaginary golden trash can on our sides. So go ahead, let's do that. 1, 2, 3. And then you just move it down as if you're just cleaning up that forehead, right? This area represents, again, logical on the left, emotional on the right. Okay? So mine, it's denser on the right. So is it always like that? No, it depends on you. Okay? Every day, every moment is a different experience. But when these two parts of your brain are always too much, right, fighting each other, then there's no place for intuition to work, for that inner knowing, for that divine guidance to just come through. Because if we're overthinking, what happens? We're not open to anything because these are the things that we think are going to work. Remember, your brain only knows history. It doesn't know what's going to happen in the future. Your intuition can sense that. For those of you who are clairvoyant, right, can see the future. Maybe you can hear something and you don't know where it's coming from. But then your job is not to question where it's coming from. You can muscle test whether it's from you or from somebody else, right? So the right side is the emotional brain. So if you keep on doing this, you'll notice like you feel good. Like, oh, my head feels like there's no pressure. It actually feels better. And you'll feel a change in your body, by the way. You'll feel that in a few seconds or minutes here. Okay. So Sarah, what happens after you start releasing the left side? What's going on in your physical body?
I'm feeling tingling on the bottom of my feet. Like it's
okay. So see, she has an immediate effect. So everyone will have a different sensation. Okay. It's not always the same. I just want to let you know that. And it's not right or wrong. Okay. There's nothing wrong with her. It's just that's what she's feeling at the moment. So pay attention to that because certain things trigger us. Some people are more sensitive to others, right? Or than others. And I always tell Sarah to protect her sensitivity. Yeah. You'll notice that when you're sensitive, but when you're around positive people, open to possibilities, she becomes like that. But then if she's around negative people, she doesn't feel very good.
Yeah.
She just doesn't. It's like, oh, my head starts to hurt, or there's parts of her body that starts to give her some symptoms. And you need to pay attention to that because it's your body. Yes. It's telling you something. So honor it, right? Because her brain is saying something, right? We learned that the brain and the mind tells the body what to do. So if she's already getting triggered there and her body is like screaming at her, she needs to pay attention to that, right? Instead of ignore that. Because if you keep on ignoring it, you're just burying layers of issues and then you're going to have therapy for it.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have a question?
No, but Venus, have any other questions?
Wow. Wow. Okay. So we'll give it a few more minutes to see
feel like it's marinating a bit.
Yes, yes. And I know a lot of us that came from Sedona are still kind of like processing because there was a lot that happened there in the last 3 days. But I know that the body needs time to integrate, right? So for those of you who came with me in Sedona, spend more time in nature. Again, walk around, feel your body, perhaps do some yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong, and just feel good. Like, it's very rare for us in this society to be taught to feel good, right? We're like, you got to do something. You got to do something. You don't need to do anything. You just have to be yourself, because my clients know that when they are who they are, right? They are aligned with that soul purpose. It's fascinating how the right clients come to them. Like literally they attract who they are. And that's the fascinating part of it, is you don't need to try to be someone else when you are your own design, right? You are your own self. All right. So we're going to call this a wrap because I don't see any more questions. So I want to thank you all.
Oh, here's some. I'm sorry. I apologize, Vivian.
Oh, you do. You do have a question.
A question just came through from Christine Erickson.
Okay.
She says, what kinds of questions do you ask when you get a download, but then you don't see how to accomplish it?
Oh, I got you. Okay. So, Christine, if you would share with us a download, let's say that you got. So, I'm going to share with you while you're typing there what I got in Sedona, right? So, obviously, in my business, I know who are the clients I would like to attract. I have my ideal clients, somebody who really would like to change their life and be a money magnet, right? So, that's my clientele. And it's not just little money, right? It's really that quantum leap of where you are. I mean, you could be broke and then change yourself to be a millionaire or a billionaire if you like, right? So it depends on what are you willing to let go and release in order for you to have this new life altogether. So, for example, I ask certain questions like, how does it get better than this? Let's say you're in such a bad situation and you just don't know what to do, right? So you surrender completely and you just ask, how does it get better than this? That's one question. And the other question I share with my group is, what are the infinite possibilities of receiving blank amount of money? So whatever it is that you decide with ease, grace, and flow, let's say in the next 3 months or in the next 6 months, you decide, right? Okay, so then your question is to work with a specific coach, but don't yet have the money to do so. Okay, this is a very good question. Thank you so much. All right, so when I created the program, by the way, all these feelings that you're feeling are normal, right? Like you're afraid, you don't have the money, you look at your bank account, or even there's no investment at all. There's nothing, no savings. Most of my clients came from that space, right? I have created, so this is what I realized is I would create a container for these clients. So I've created a 6-figure container, 100,000 to 500,000, and a 7-figure container. So think about yourself if you have no money, or you have money to at least for basic living, right? Food, clothing, shelter, that's covered. At least you know that you have a budget or spending plan for that. But obviously you don't have the money, let's say for a 6-figure, like how can I even get to 100,000? I don't even know how to make 50,000, let's say, a year. That's where the deserving issues come up, or undeserving issues, the unworthiness, right? And all the programs we learned from parents, how we grew up, perhaps church, religion, culture, and tradition. So if you have a limiting belief about money, saying that, oh, rich people can't really enter the kingdom of heaven, you've heard that before, right? So that's a belief that somehow serve whoever preached that, but maybe you're not. But you're like, but then I really want to help more people. If I had $1 million, I know I'm just going to give it to the poor, establish a project, right? So when you step into that investment, when you have coaches, right? People always think I can't afford it, which means you're digging your own prosperity hole, because that means you cannot afford anything else. It's like you're not giving yourself permission to even dream or do anything. And these clients that went from, like I said, the first client was like 30, well, she went from nothing to 120K in 90 days. The next client I have now is like, she had a $30,000 goal in 90 days. She got it in 30 days. And then she goes, what do I do with this goal? I don't know what to do now, right? Like they don't know how to do it, what to do. And it's not about the linear steps. I wish I could tell you it's linear. So if you're okay working with a coach that can bring you to this quantum leap, because I'm bridging the spirit, there are spiritual laws about money. And by the way, it's not limiting at all. And then there's the what to do, right? What do you do? Because a lot of it I notice is the unworthy and undeserving issues and that lack of confidence that they actually have this skill. So it's never about you. You're like, I want to serve clients and I would like to do it in a bigger way. Like for me, I like to serve clients, but I don't want multiple clients. I just want certain amount of people that I can really focus on their greatness, because it's not about me at this point, right? It's like me clearing the issues you have so that you can step into that role, to your own design, to your own greatness. So that's what happened. That's how these people suddenly made millions of dollars. Like in their head, it's 7 days. For me, it's collapsing that time-space reality, because if there's so much baggage in the back that says that you're not worthy and you're not deserving, it'll take you years to even see your first million a lot of times, right? However, if you know you're God's child, well, we're all wealthy already, but I've defined what I really want as wealthy, right? Like for me, I like trips, I like aligned purpose, right? Like I'm wealthy but purposeful and conscious, not like, yeah, I'm so busy, I can't get a life. I don't like that life. So I have redefined that life. So you decide what that life looks like, and then you trust that the mentor you're going to hire, you'll feel it in your body, because it feels scary, but at the same time, like, oh my God, how come it feels so right to be with this person? Like there's a conflict always inside of you when you're signing that dotted line. But everybody goes through that, right, Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if it feels right, even if it doesn't, because it's scary, that fear will kind of play tricks on you. But
Mm-hmm.
if it feels right, and you know in your heart that you want to step over those
Mm-hmm.
limiting beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
what you ask for and what you need to invest in yourself will show up. It will.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
always
Like
works
it will
out.
magically appear. It's almost magic. I guess that's what I want to share with the audience is when you're willing to let go of that attachment, because that attachment could be an old relationship or a relationship that's not working, but you're trying to fix it, right?
Right.
If you think about, and I do this a lot when, like my next Up Level 2020, we're going to focus on release, refocus, and recover. Because I don't believe in standing on failures. That's why we clear the energy. When you stand on failures and you're thinking about fixing something, it never works because it's already damaged in your head to begin with.
Absolutely.
But then you're like, I'm just going to fix this for the reason of fixing this, right? So that I can be better. Nope, you got to start it clean, like a new beginning, a clean slate. Like nothing in your life in the past really existed. It was just you created that.
It's amazing, like you said. I mean, I used to get stuck on something like a failure, and I would hold on to that, and then just realizing now I can just let that go and move on, so that I can open up the possibility for things. Right. So you just never know what's hiding, what's
behind.
You know, and usually sometimes it's very obvious after the fact. Yeah. When you I'm like, how come I didn't see that before, you know? Yeah. And it's so obvious, but I mean,
well, we can't beat ourselves up and say, absolutely. How come I didn't see that before, right?
Because it's just about clarity and having that new, fresh eyes.
Right.
And like I was telling you today, coming back from Sedona, everything's brand new. It's like, everything, even the trees that I stare at every day are brand new. It's like I have a whole new clarity of vision. I could see what was holding me back. And it is the most common limiting beliefs out there. Which,
yeah, like money is the most common limiting belief. I see that a lot.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting that we made money almost like an enemy when money can be your best friend, right? Absolutely. So go ahead, Christine, and ask this question. How can I make money and time my friend? How can I make money and time my friend?
I love that.
Just think about that, right? Because we think we have to work for it, like it's some unachievable thing, which is not true. And we're thinking we're per hour. That's the other limiting belief. It's like, oh my God, who's going to pay somebody with this skill this much? Right? So if I think about me as a physical therapist, before we were paid a certain amount. And so when I switched to being an energy healer, an energy declutterer, and an energy reader, I start to go, oh no, who's going to pay for me? Because in my head, I was only worth this much per hour. So just charging even double that is like, I'm shaking. And I was like, it took me years to even like be confident in how much I charge, right? But I realized it's not the hour. It's the skill. Like, what did I go through to get where I'm at? And what kind of results can I bring to this person? And again, if you got a download from God saying, this is the charge, you go, what? You just have to bring it in, right? So, Lisa, yes, happy equinox. It's about new beginning, the intention that you're setting. And everything right now is really moving very fast. So it's just you decide yes or no. Being undecided still makes you made a decision about being undecided.
I see.
It's just a choice, right? We decide, yes, I want to grow. There's no good or bad timing, by the way. It just is. And then you move forward with it. So thank you, Christine. That was a very, very specific question that I'm sure really, really helped the audience. So if you know muscle testing, Christine, that might be also a good way of checking that, right? And you can even test like when is a good time to work with this person. Is it now, few months from now, right? Or a year from now? Like you decide. Again, you decide. Some people have a weakness in speed, like fast. They don't like fast because they think they're going to make a mistake. I can tell you that you, again, if you've been holding on to something, I don't know how long you want to hold on to that. You want to delete that, to me, lightning speed like now, instead of holding on to it. Because once you lighten your load, you'll notice you create more space for the people to access you and your services. That's really the difference. Yeah.
I love it.
And that was my lesson when we were in Sedona. So one of the first days that we did this is they had to build a structure of their business, right? So their business is not themselves. They're separate from their business. It's like their new baby. That's who they're growing. And for me, I didn't get that I had to build because I already have a business and I needed to just rearrange things and open it up to certain people, which means either new services, right, for others to really be blessed by the gifts and the talents that God has given me. And I was so humbled because all I heard the whole trip was, I am nothing, yet I am everything. So I was so humbled, yet grateful. And I was just crying and crying. And that I couldn't have any other thought except you're nothing, but you're everything. You're nothing, yet you're everything. That's all I was hearing. And it's true when you don't really ask for anything more, because if you feel like you don't have enough still, you're still coming from the energy of lack because you're not standing in your power in what you have. Does that make sense? So if you're feeling like, oh, I still need this, is it possible that you can give yourself permission to have what you want and then just go for it? That's really the difference. Yeah, the energy of being confident that God's with you versus I'm not enough, so I just need to do more. See, you see how much work that is? It sounds like too much effort versus, you know, whoever's ready for me is going to come and work with me. Of course, they're going to work with me because it's fun and it's light and it's just happy to be in my space, right? So you have to feel that in your system first, in your own self, and then they just come. And then now you have a different challenge, right? Like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all these clients?
Not a bad problem to have.
Not a bad problem to have. Yes, yes. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for sharing this space with me today. And I hope these insights have helped you one way or the other. And next week, we're going to be featuring the Mage Academy. I'm part of that faculty. So we changed our name from Jedi Academy to Mage Academy. So please stay tuned next Tuesday at 12 p.m. And Sarah, thank you so much for coordinating all the comments and the questions and your insights as well. So thank you for your presence.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. You have a great day. Bye-bye for now.